Canadian Teachers Federations put out a gender-affirming classroom discussion booklet. How can we Canucks, sorry, I don't know how to pronounce it. Canadians, right? Canucks. How can we Canucks fight back against this? Oh, man.
I mean, look.
I just cannot believe we're here. I cannot believe we're any of these places, but with like repurposed drugs, even with the vaccines, like all the COVID stuff, I see the veils they're putting up and the shadow and the fog machine and the ventilators that may have been used to juke the stats. And like, it's not okay, but I do see how people got confused. And I see how some people could still be confused. I do not understand how parents of children could actually believe that gender identity was a thing that needed to be decided. And if your little kid decides that they're the sex they're not, it's time to bring in the doctors. I can't, I have no sympathy, no empathy. I'm done. I just have no understanding, and I don't care to listen to the person who's going to explain to me why their kid's gender identity is important. No.
Yeah, I agree with you, but I want to point out the little bridge between those two stories.
Yeah.
Because I do believe that it's the same failure. It's just that in one of them,
it is.
It's
yeah.
like too stunning. But,
right.
Okay. Thing about COVID. That was some goofy ass shit. But when it came to
yes,
kids and the vaccines,
more parents stood up.
Well, yes, but then a lot of them didn't. What the fuck happened?
Yeah, a lot of parents will willingly, exuberantly, joyously, finally we will live freely again once I get my baby vaccinated against a disease which has almost no chance of even affecting him.
Like literally, there is no case that anybody was able to find in which a healthy kid died of COVID. Right? You had some with comorbidities who may have died of COVID. But if your kid is healthy, there was never any reason to give them the vaccines. If the vaccines had been saline, right, then the point is you're still not doing your kid a favor in light of the fact that, hey, you're denying them, you think you're denying them natural immunity, which they would get if they got sick, right? But the point is they weren't saline. They were radical. And if you, having reached adult age enough to produce children, do not realize that products are sometimes not safe, even though they have been signed off by the relevant authorities, then you're not paying attention. And if you are not caused to pay attention by the fact that we're talking about giving these things to your own kid, then there's something wrong with you. And so my point is, if, little Gerald says that he feels like Francine and mommy reacts to this not by saying, look, Gerald, go wash up for dinner, we'll talk about this, later or whatever.
Yes, you can wear a party hat if you want to.
Right, you can wear a party hat, but, I want this done by the end of the week, whatever it is, right? That person didn't get it, and instead, as you say, they called in the doctors, not even just doctors, but surgeons, right? Right? That's batshit crazy. But my point is, it's like the COVID vaccinating your kid thing was batshit crazy too. It was half as much batshit, but it's still batshit.
Yeah, but how do we fight back against this? I'm trying to figure this one out, and there's some organizations that are very good. GenSpect, Parents with Inconvenient Truths About Trans, which have a new book out that's coming out. Some of the things that I've written specifically in the hopes that they could be shared with people who don't see it. Some things like this piece that I just wrote this last week about the cheating in sports, not as much. On the other hand, somehow cheating in sports, men and women's sports, is like the shallow end of the pool. People see that who don't believe that anything is being done to children. So that is a way in, actually. But I've got two pieces on natural selections. What is a woman? Or no, I am a woman and a biologist. And what do girls do? Girls grow up to be women. Girls do all sorts of stuff. Some of them looks girly and some of them doesn't look girly, and it doesn't matter because that's not how you figure out if you're a girl. You are a girl, you're not a girl. What do girls do? Girls grow up to be women. Both of those pieces I wrote carefully without snark so that they could be shared, and they have been. What else?
Well, I have a very different reaction to this question. Okay. I don't think there's a list of resources because we are so far beyond any sort of anticipated failure, right? At the point that you are actually maiming your own children over childhood delusions that you have frankly induced by creating the impression that huge numbers of people are born in the wrong body or some other bullshit.
Yeah.
At the point that you're there, you're not talking about, what organizations or publications or, it's not a thing for organizations or publications, right? This is the antithesis of that kind of problem. So I would say two things, one of which I haven't figured out how to say yet, and I'm not sure I'm ready. But first thing is, school is potentially highly valuable. But school is not inherently highly valuable, and it can be destructive. Okay? I do not know why we are fetishizing school and imagining that that's where children belong. School is a place where children belong at the point that it is net beneficial for them to be there.
I mean, anecdotally, we're hearing about a lot more people now who are homeschooling, but that is some work. You need to be in a position of some,
Look, I'm not.
Go on.
I feel like I'm in the same place that I was with capture, right? I was screaming my head off about capture for 15, maybe 20 years. Yeah, it was before we ever got to Evergreen. So this is more than 2 decades ago. I've been screaming about capture, and everybody's confused. Oh, regulatory capture. Yeah, that could be a problem. No, we're not talking about regulatory capture. We're talking about capture, the whole fucking thing.
Yeah.
The journalism, the universities, the regulators, the whole thing.
Agencies.
Right. So the point is, okay, you ignore that because it doesn't quite click for you. You don't know what capture means.
Feels too big.
It's amorphous. It's weird. That sounds like a conspiracy theory, yada, yada, yada. You ignore it for 20 years, right? Then the whole fucking edifice starts coming apart, right? Everything is in collapse because all of the authorities are corrupt and nobody knows anything, right? And so suddenly the speakeasies are now podcasts. Get it? Speakeasies are now podcasts. Okay, that's the only place where anybody says anything true anymore, right? It's the unaffiliated places, okay?
Yeah.
And then it's like, okay, what do we do? Get a time machine and go back 20 years. That's what you do because you don't have the tools to deal with it now. Now, this is a fucking emergency. The thing is on fire, right?
Okay, but you still got to act in an emergency.
Think
in an emergency, all
right,
that.
But my point is, first of all, I don't want to face another one of these emergencies. So the point is, the first thing you do is you realize you fucked up 20 years ago. Right? That's just job one. Then, as soon as that's over...
What was the fuck up 20 years ago for most individuals, for most ordinary people?
We did not throw the bums out. We had 2 parties that were compromised by corruption, okay? And the point is, we could have purged the corruption at that point. We could have made corruption the central issue.
At the latest, by the late 90s, we had 2 parties who were both corrupt.
Both deeply corrupt.
Right.
And I'm not saying...
Maybe it goes back way
The corruption goes back a long way, but the point is the out-of-control positive feedback corruption, where that became the purpose of the parties, right, had taken over. And they were playing this game where it looked like they were still about policy, and then yes, there was some corruption, and people started doing their work for them and pretending that the corruption was less important than it was. So anyway, look, I don't want to dwell on the part where you don't have a time machine, but that's obviously the thing to do. My point is that's about never making the same mistake again. You take care of these problems when they are small, because if you let evolution refine the corruption thing, it becomes insurmountable, and then you're dealing with collapse. And then people want to know what you do about collapse. And the answer is probably nothing. But what do you try to do? So if we can go back to the school point, okay?
Yeah.
My point is, we literally have schools that are part of a movement in which they are advocating reproductive ending surgeries for children based on childhood delusions that they themselves seeded, right? At that point, how can we save our schools is not really the question.
Well, that was not the question.
Well, I know, but then the point is, look,
how could we fight back was the question.
Okay, but you could not pay me to send a young child to a school where they're going to feed that garbage to them. Okay? Well, yes, but homeschooling is hard. I know. Maybe I can't even do it. But I'd rather have my child unschooled than have them schooled in that garbage. Right? We're talking about actual mental poison. Right?
Okay, but
so
I mean, it's abundantly clear.
Yeah.
Now, to us, to the guy who wrote this question, woman, I don't know, to many, many people. Still somehow not clear to others, and that feels baffling, right? Some people will say, 10 years ago it was clear.
Yep.
I didn't see it.
Yep.
I saw some things.
I agree.
But not like this. Not at all. So, and some people then will say, like, how can you not see this? It's so obvious. Why aren't you fighting back against this now? So, you know, we all see things at different times, in different ways. And once you've seen it, once you're through the looking glass, like, how can anyone be on the other side of that thing?
That's not what I'm saying. The person who wrote that question has seen it.
Yeah.
Okay. So they're asking, what do you do? And I'm saying, unfortunately, the answer to what do you do doesn't sound like the answer you're looking for, because people are looking for something tractable, and you're dealing with a problem that may well be intractable. So you're dealing with, you know, Star Trek, when they dump the warp.
Yes.
Yeah. They dump the warp core, right?
Yeah.
They don't dump the warp core because they've got a source for warp cores. Mm-hmm. They dump it because they don't have a fucking choice, right? That's the whole point of that trope. It's the thing you do because it's the first step to
lesser
something.
Of two evils, just this time, because it's too important this time. Just vote the lesser of two evils.
The lesser of two, right? You got to stop doing that shit. Exactly. But look, to me, if our kids were young and this shit was at this level,
if you mean like if they were in elementary school,
right?
Yeah.
The answer is actually, I don't know what we do about getting.
And there was rainbows and such, but it wasn't.
It wasn't like this.
Like
People
this.
were not advocating surgery for children. They were not defending pedophilia. They were not doing all of the stuff that they are now doing. So, all I'm saying is, in such a case, the first thing you do is you dump the warp core. That's you pulling your kids out of school. What do you do for your kids after you pull them out of school? I don't know. But at least, if you do a crappy job of homeschooling them, you will not do as much harm as what happens if school does an excellent job of convincing them that people magically change from one sex to the other and that maybe they should think about it, right? So your cobbled together homeschool thing might be pretty good, actually, right? Might be great for them. And frankly, I would suggest...
Especially if you can find 4 other families and you each take the kids one day a week or something.
Right. And if you have like skills, like... You know how to.
I'll bet this guy. I don't know. I don't know. If
you know how to
I
grow
bet you have
things.
skills.
You know how to grow things in the garden.
Yeah.
Do you do carpentry, or have you ever been interested in it? Maybe you should get some tools. And if you just simply get your kids to be able to produce stuff that's cool, it doesn't have to solve any problems for you, but make stuff, tables. I don't know what you want to make, but. Make stuff.
Tables seems like a really big first project.
All right, it's going to be hard to sell kids on tables, but
I just think it's
okay. I take it back. Tables turns out to be the carpentry equivalent of paper clips. We're not making the world into tables.
No,
that's a bad plan. Yeah, but still,
we're going to turn forests into tables today, kids.
If you pull your kids out of school and you get together with some other families who've seen it too, and you figure out what skills you have that actually will teach kids how stuff works, right? You could do a lot worse. You'll
well, be... and we've seen models like this. Like actually, so just two models that we have directly experienced. What?
My mind
Tables?
is filled with tables. Yes.
Yes. Your brain is now proliferating tables.
Yes.
Well, we did in the summers for many, many years when we were in Olympia. We did what we called family camp with 2 or 3 other families, where we each took it turns out 7 kids when it was 4 families. And basically we ran a week of day camp, and then each of the other 3 families ran a week of day camp, and we each played to our strengths. So we did like zoo and nature walks and bike riding, and took them on a tour of our local organic farm that we had our CSA with. And another family did like baseball and theater. Another one did swimming and like swimming lessons, and another one did a lot of like gardening and cooking, and it was great for them. Right? It was great, and it was mixed age. But then also the school that Zach was at for only 1 year in first grade, and then it closed down. But basically a 1-room schoolhouse for, I don't know, kids ranging from like 5 to 8 or something was completely fantastic. And one of the things they did was, I'm going to call it Friday, but like every Friday, rain or shine, snow, anything, they went out and into the woods, and they did stuff, and they climbed trees, and they also, I mean, even like the example that I remember from talking to Nick, who ran the school, was like occasionally they would find roadkill, and they'd skin it and tan the leather and turn it into stuff like belts.
Tables.
Not tables. Belts. I don't want roadkill tables. Don't want them.
Well, you can wake up and the house is going to be full of tables.
Full of tables. I hope they're better than what a 6-year-old could make.
All right, we'll pivot from tables to some other plan.
Yeah, I mean, we have a beautiful table that you made.
I innovated a table.
Yeah, no, it's gorgeous.
pretty good.
The joinery is
I'm
really
looking
nice.
forward to following it up. Now that I know what's wrong with that design, I'm going to upgrade. But
You're going to start making tables.
oh, so many.
Okay.
Man.
Excellent.
But
Table saw's almost built, I hear.
yeah.
Okay.
So I just want to complete this though.
Yeah.
The first part of the thing is get your kid out of danger, right? Your
Yeah.
kid is in the equivalent of a burning building. Go get them. And the fact that you don't know what, if your school was on fire, right? The fact that you don't know what to do outside of school is not an argument for leaving your kid in the burning building. So get your kid out of the burning building, right? And now you have a problem, which is what are they going to do when they would otherwise be in school? Well, at least they're not there.
Yeah.
Right? Solve that problem. But then the other thing is we have been induced to forget all of the stuff that you're supposed to do when things go haywire. Right? We're literally supposed to be in the streets demanding that the morons who have been put in power are ejected, and somebody who actually speaks for us is in power, and we've become subordinate to these parties that, in our case, these things are literally not mentioned in our Constitution. They are not required. And yet, somehow...
What, aren't schools?
No, parties, political parties.
Parties.
If the political parties don't sanction a candidate, you're not allowed to vote for them? Really? Where did that come from? It doesn't sound like Thomas Jefferson to me. Yeah. That sounds like bullshit, right? So, the point is, if the parties suck, we can just dispense with them, right? And, the 20% of people who are happy in their party... they can, I don't know, they can entertain themselves having conventions. But
no debates.
They can do whatever they like.
Well, apparently they don't want to talk.
Dress in blue and dance the Macarena if that's what makes them happy. But they've got to, what? I am sick of that party. I got to tell you.
I can tell.
I've been sick of the other party
even taking jabs at Al Gore. Okay.
Yeah, well, nonetheless. So the point is, this is the emergent, because the water boiled slowly, we're not in the streets. But you can tell that the water's boiling. That's why you asked the question.
Yep.
So that's their entire game. They're trying to do this as fast as possible, but just not.
Just not fast enough that we spill into the streets and demand better.